Baby. Cool. Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Book. You already know what time it is. We're giving you guys another live, and we're going to be discussing marriage and talking about the effects of religion on marriage. So, guys, as always, you know, I always bring some guests on with me who are gonna shell out some, some good food for you guys to eat. So, if you've already eaten, make some room because it's gonna be a very heavy meal tonight. So, I'm joined by two fabulous guests. One of them you'll recognize as always because he's always with me. You know what I'm saying? We're like two brothers. You know what I'm saying? I call him my older brother. You know what I'm saying? Because the beard is strong on him as well.
Okay.
I'm trying to get like him, the anointing and the wisdom in that beard. But yeah, guys, as always, we have Curtis and we also have Anthony. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves, let them give us a little rundown where we can find them, what they're about, what they do, and then we're gonna kick off that conversation and eat some good food today. Go for it, Curtis.
Listen, this is Marriage UK. You know what we do. We help people navigate the journey of relationships through conversations, counseling. This is what we do. Whether you're single, married, divorced, blended, whatever you are, check us out. We can support you and help you. And we have got bigger things to come. And I just want to throw this in as well. Check this out. Check this out. Noir Collections, my friends. Listen, Noir Collections. It's not me. It's my friend. Noir Collections. Let me. Oh, look, it's coming off. Now, this is my good friend. They're giving away 2 hats for the first 2 people. Go to their website and answer this question. The question is, what does noir mean? Where are we? What does noir mean?
Google.
Go to noircollections.co.uk.
I'll put that in the chat.
It's a Black-owned company. 3 Black women have put this together and are running this show, and they are hustling in this time where some people are crumbling. Go and support this brand, Noir Collections. The what does noir mean? Go to noircollections.co.uk and you can catch them on Instagram, Noir Collections. Thank you very much. Anthony, I hand it over to you, bro.
Yeah, my name's, as you said, Anthony Fuller. I am a minister of the gospel. I'm currently doing youth work across the south of England. I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I'm feeling very blessed to be a part of this program. I haven't been a keen follower, but I think I will be after tonight. So I'm looking forward to this discussion and what's in store for sure.
Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. Thank you very much, Mr. Fuller. So, guys, like I said, I promise we're going to have some food today, some heavy food. So I think we're going to jump straight into the main meal. We're not even going to deal with the sides. We're going to go straight in. So the question today we are dealing with, Mr. Guy, he's trying to promote big time, isn't he? Noir Collection. Hey, don't forget, guys, www.noircollections.co.uk, okay? All right. So we're dealing with a heavy conversation today where we're talking about the effects of religion on marriage. Now, Mr. Fuller, you actually introduced and said, obviously, you're a minister of the gospel. So I want to ask a question here. As a minister of the gospel, how have you seen how religion, faith, Christianity, whichever you want to call it, has affected marriage in your eyes? What you've seen? How has religion affected marriage, good or bad? We can start off.
I think your question is very loaded. You said religion, then you said faith. I see them as 2 different things.
Beautiful.
So from a religious standpoint, I think it's had a negative effect. You can always argue positives as well, but I think generally negative. I see, or I would define religion more as a man-based system, which is trying their best to adhere to faith beliefs, trying to stay as close to the gospel as possible, but we put in some rules and some traditions and some things to, make it a little bit easier for us to follow. And the reality is that if you've grown up in a religious system, in a church system, then that system becomes you. And so whether you are at work, whether you're married, you're a parent, it's going to influence what you do. And the way we do church on some level is very rigid. It's very rigid. It's very performance. It's very visual. It's very. It's not so much what you are; it's what we see of you. And so that then, on some level, becomes many people's marriages more performance, more visual than substance, which is why, on some level, we see marriages that are struggling and don't know how to get help, even though they're within church. The idea is that within church, you would get the most help or the most support or grow the most. But in some levels, when religion's more involved, that's not the case. And so generally as a minister, especially for me personally, when I'm made privy to a marriage that is in danger or a relationship that's struggling, it's normally when it's too late, because we've tried to cover it and pretend for so long. But when we get to a point where, look, we can't maintain this anymore, when somebody else gets involved, generally sometimes it's a little bit too late. And that with 100% is a religious mentality. Keep your stuff, I don't want to cuss, but keep your stuff tight until eventually it will blow up in your face.
Is that a cultural thing, or is that more of a religious thing? So like, let's talk about the Institute of Church, right? So the Institute of Church, we go to it Sunday, Saturday, whichever you go for, and this social environment is it that environment, that is that a conditioned kind of set of values that we keep, the thoughts of our marriage maybe not going too well to ourselves, and then only when we get to where we can't handle it no more, we then ask for outer help? Is that a church thing?
I think yes, it's all of the above. I think the culture influences how you practice your religion, 100%. And so if you were brought up in a predominantly European church, there's going to be a certain flavor, a certain type of music, certain dress code. If you're brought up in a Caribbean church, it's the same thing. An African church, the same thing. I've been privileged to have traveled to different types of churches. The religion, the core principles stay the same generally, but how it's practiced, how it's manifested. So if you go to a British church is very different from a traditional Caribbean church, a little bit more liberal, so to speak. But yes, all those things factor into the religious aspect. And I do believe that even though I see religion and faith as different, religion without faith is not religion, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Curtis, you want to add to that then?
All day. What we're seeing is that there is a one set of shoes that everybody needs to wear. It's one size and it's one shape, but everybody has different shape boots. We need shoes, but everyone has different shaped boots. But these are the boots that you need to wear in order to function effectively. But that really in practice is impossible. And so what we're seeing is people are trying to uphold standards that may not apply to them or are unsuitable for them, and are trying to save their marriages within a framework that is flawed for them. Because for me personally, I am not against religion. It's just prioritizing. Because I think religion as something for us. But if I'm trying to live my life according to, and some of us can't tell the difference between culture and religion, and the lines get blurred. And the thing about religion is that it keeps us grounded. It's supposed to keep us grounded. But there is a dominant social construct, a dominant feature that maybe one man or one family wants us to wear these boots for every occasion. And my marriage, like, have you ever seen a plant in a pot that is too small? The plant doesn't grow very well. And sometimes they die. But the plants, they tend to grow in a funny shape when the pot is too small. And that's because I'm living in your construct because it works. And not that it even works for you, but I'm living in your construct. Anthony, it looks like you want to say something, you know.
No. I'm listening. I'm listening. Continue.
Oh, sorry. Okay. And so when you're saying that you come to marriages that appear too late, I always use this term, you know, like when you've run your car into the ground so much, and it's like the guy at the garage is saying, I can't fix this. You've got to change this. And I think something that 25, 30 years of emotional turmoil based on things that don't belong to you. And some of us don't even know how to get back. And we're just scratching the surface on this.
Yeah. Just to jump in there, Curtis, in regards to religion, you know, the context for today's program is in relation to marriage. So let's use me for an example. I was married in 2007. And so I've been married for 13 years. But I started going to church from when, I can't even give you the date, but from when I was 7 years old. And so I've already been trained religiously in religion. I've been trained that way. And so what I learned was, if you make a mistake and you get catch, you're going to get beaten. You're going to get fellowshipped. You're going to get punished. Something's going to happen. There's consequences for mistakes. I've seen it happen to people. I've experienced it. And so there's a level of trauma there. There's a level of bad negative experiences. I may not even be mindful how much it influences my decisions, how much it affects the way that I live, how I parent, how I operate relationally. But the reality is, it's become who I am. And so now when I get married, when you marry me, you also marry the religion that I was brought up into, and the trauma that comes with that, and the experiences, whether it be positive experiences or negative experiences, all a part of that. And so immediately when there are challenges, I hide those challenges, because that's what I've been taught to do. That's what religion has made me do, because if I'm struggling, nobody talks about the negatives of their marriages. Nobody goes about sharing their challenges or their issues or their ups and their downs. Generally, people keep that stuff tight. And so I've seen it kept tight. I keep it tight. And that is religion in my mind, and why it's so toxic if we're not able, as Curtis said, to read between the lines and see that, you know, there is a thin line between religion, faith, and reality, between God and how we perceive life.
I love that. And you spoke about, obviously, the restrictions that can come with the trauma of being in, I guess, a religious mindset. Obviously, as I said, a lot of us grew up in a church institute. We got taught certain things. If I can ask a more question that maybe press a little bit deeper, I don't know how much you want to share. How much has it impacted your particular marriage? I don't know how deep you want to go, but feel free. But because obviously I like to always try to ask, so it's personal, because I can understand on a broader scale. I hear what you're saying, but for yourself, in your particular marriage, let's say, what things have you had to deal with that you've had to begin to undo? So the things that you saw that were religious in yourself, or that were beginning to come into your marriage, what were the kind of stuff that you started to have to undo?
Is that directed at me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, say no more. Just before I answer that, is the reception okay? I feel like I'm cutting in and out.
No,
it is a bit, but we're following you still.
Okay, say no more. All right. Well, first, let me add another dimension to the question, is that I'm also a pastor. And so being a pastor adds another level of challenges to the fact that I'm not just brought up in a religious Christian faith-based church, but also being a minister has also added challenge. So honestly, it's been, especially the early part. So When I joined the ministry, got into the ministry, the expectations that I placed on myself, on my wife, and our marriage was impossible. And so a lot of the challenges was based on the high expectation that I had as a minister, as a Christian, and as a leader. And so I expected that we should always be at church and always be on time. We should always be happy. We should not have issues. And so when we did have issues, I would be guilt-ridden. I couldn't process it because I knew that something went right, but I still had to perform like everything was okay. I had to live that life. And so I consciously but indirectly lived a life that wasn't necessarily genuine because of the standard religion had set and the expectations that I had set for myself was unfeasible, wasn't realistic. And that took a serious strain. And the funny thing is, my bro, is that I didn't even realize that I was doing this. This was normal for me. It was normal. I didn't see it as an issue. I didn't see it as a problem. I actually assumed that everybody was going through this, that this is what everybody was going through. No, that's not true. I assumed that my marriage was the worst and everybody was okay because everybody seemed okay, but I knew deep down that I was on the ropes. And so I struggled with this double life. It was a double life. And that honestly was one of the hardest things I've had to ever do because I'm a naturally authentic 100% person. But in this instance, I could not be because being a pastor, being within the church, how can my members know that I'm struggling? Which I've never seen a pastor admit to these things, and it's not going to start with me. It's not going to start with me, and so I had to play the game. I had to play the game and keep that thing moving. Listen, I'm going to try and work my Wi-Fi out real quick because I see myself cutting out.
You're good. Your thing. I guess whilst you're doing that, I can ask Curtis because actually I'll ask him after as well because I think we've spoken a bit about this as well about the reality of the I'm holding it together. How does one break out of the reality of I've got everything? I've got to present this religious kind of routine, you know, to show everybody that I've got it together. How do we break out of that? Because that's a very difficult thing you're asking. Or how did you break out of it?
Well, you know what? It's a process because you have to be very self-aware. You know what it is? I think it's so important and I'm speaking, I think this is about husbands now. Do you know what I'm saying? Although it can happen with women, I think we should look at this from a husband's perspective. It's easier to do it that way. You know, you have to see yourself as somebody worth saving. And I say that for this reason, you know, a lot of people, we go to church, which is a perfectly fine religion, or part of the religion, but we're nobody outside of Sunday. Do you understand? Like what we can be in our church, we might not be anything like that in the world. And so when I go to my job, whether it's a cleaning job or whatever I do, or office job, whatever I do, I can easily be just him, you know? And when I come to church, I have this new society that I belong to for the next 10 hours or whatever, because I used to go to church from 9:30 till 7 p.m. I'm there all day, and obviously we're dressed up. And I don't have a voice in a week, but on a Sunday or Saturday, Sabbath, whatever you do, you are able to articulate this really, you know, and people look at you, you've got status, you've got a title. And this is it. I think that once your faith is about people, other people, you will try to uphold a standard of appearance. How does one break out of that? Well, I think I said it last week. And we need to keep saying it as well. Only recently did we discover grace. only recently. And so when I say grace, I'm using the term grace, and I use it often because I'm like, because I know what Christ did for me, and because I'm developing a relationship with him, I'm actually saying, let me step back a little bit and understand why I'm dysfunctional in my marriage in the name of my faith. Why am I arguing on the way to church and then smiling when I get to church? Why are these things happening? Why is the church day the most contentious day of the week? Why is it that we're not meeting and study? I had to ask God, like, what? Because listen, it got bad. And I had to say, like, God, show me. Now, look, I never get messages, voices, dreams. But if I ask her to show me, he'll show me. And he's just like, let them go. How do I break out? It means I have to be prepared to be nobody, but somebody for my wife. That means I have to, I don't want to answer the whole thing. That means I have to sacrifice my desire to be popular and to be sacrifice. You know what it is when you're somebody. When you're somebody, that's a lot, you know. I mean, Fuller, how many people are happy to sacrifice their family because they're in a position? We come from the same church. This is something we see. I see in other denominations. I know people from all denominations. Position is everything. And my wife is sitting there. I remember, bro, listen, because you did that survey, Anthony. You did that survey, and I preached it in church about the issues that young people are finding, the amount of families with children with mental health problems, Christian families. And as you're preaching, oh, let me show you something else.
Go for it, girl.
I don't want to take it over.
No,
go for it. Anthony, I'm going to give it to you. Do you know what got me? This is what got me. Wife and I got issues, right? And some of it is centered around this whole religion. And I'm going to church before her. She's coming to church 2 hours, 3 hours later with the children. I'm preaching, I'm teaching, I'm playing piano and all that. And as I'm preaching, as soon as I see my wife's face, this is nothing to do with her, you know. This is a reality check. I knew I was lying. What am I saying? What am I saying, Anthony?
I think you've nailed it on the head with the one word. I'll add another word to that. Grace, 100%. Religion is about my performance. And that's why it's so difficult to keep maintaining the high standard, because it's about what I can do for myself. And you realize quickly, or you realize when it's a little bit too late, that you cannot keep up to this standard. In other words, let's just keep it 100. You cannot love your wife the way the Bible teaches on religion alone. It's not going to happen. I didn't know this. I wasn't, even though I'd heard the songs and people have preached it, I think fundamentally I had not seen it live.
Yes.
I'd not experienced it. And so grace was a foreign experience for me. I know the word grace, amazing grace, how sweet sound. I know what
Did you preach
about,
Did you preach grace? Did you preach grace?
I did not as much as I should have, and I understand why I haven't preached grace, because I can't preach what I can't give. And so I would preach more what I kind of know. And so grace itself. And so get this now, right now, I am understanding and being broken by grace. But before I could even appreciate grace, I had to first understand this, that I am loved just as I am.
Ooh.
I'm talking about in your mashup marriage, in your mashup ministry, with your addictions, with your issues, with your habits, with your challenges, that somebody loves you right there just as you are. And it got to a place where I had to begin to imagine that Jesus was hugging me in my crap, in my mess, in my stench, because that's all I could smell. That's all I could see of myself. I could only see the negative part of me. And when I began to appreciate that there is a God who loves me for me. I found this hard to accept because I have not lived or experienced this in the church, which is why I've worked so hard to keep up appearances. Because what I believed was this: if you actually found out who Anthony Fuller was, if you knew the real man, you would disfellowship me, you would fire me, you would kick me out, you would banish me. And that's what I was afraid of. And so the love factor actually helped me face my fears. Because with religion, if you take out the real essence of it, it breeds fear. And so many of us are, watch this, many of us stay in our marriages in a religious sense, not because we love our spouses, not because we want to make it work, but we are afraid of how people perceive us. And yes, my bro, that also includes culture, because from a cultural standpoint, if you're married and your marriage breaks up, culturally, that's a negative. Christianly, religiously, that's a negative. You are looked down upon, and nobody wants to look down upon, which is why when a marriage breaks down in the church, I would argue, and this is my statistics, folks, this is my statistics, but the majority of couples that break down, marriages break down, they always nearly leave the church because they know that the church will not show them grace. They know that the church will not show them love. And so now that I failed the test, I have completely failed. I have to leave this religion because this religion does not accept failures, even though the gospel says Jesus came for failures. Hey, Jesus came for failures. He came for sinners. He came for people like me. And so even now in my context of marriage and leadership, when I fail, mess up, struggle, I'm still addicted to my challenges, I am now able to hold my head up high, not because I'm good, but because I now serve somebody who loves me for who I am and is saying to me, Fuller, it's okay. We're still in this. Keep on going. Keep on rising. We will overcome this in time. This is the game changer. And Curtis, you're totally right. It's love that casteth out all fear. And that love then allows me to receive grace. It allows me to receive grace. Now, watch this. When I was reading John a year ago, the whole book of John, and Jesus offended me. He offended me because I felt, no, Jesus, you're being too kind. It's like you allow everybody. You're always letting people off. Like I don't understand why you're doing that. That's what religion does. Religion can't stand people getting off the hook. Do you know why? Because nobody took me off the hook. I have to work hard. I have to work. So to let someone else off the hook, that's not fair. And this is why religion is damaging not only to our marriages, but to our mental health, to my mental way of thinking, because so much is dependent upon me because I have yet to accept or embrace the love and grace of Jesus Christ. This fundamentally is everything. And so when Curtis said what he said, I say hallelujah, hallelujah, because grace, my friends, is real. You don't deserve it. You did nothing for it. But by the fact you said, Jesus, I believe, I trust, I am dependent, grace. And in that context of grace, I can say for a fact, I can grow because I don't put the pressure on me. The standard isn't high. I am now able to grow at my pace and in my time, trusting as I study and know God relationally that He will do for me what I've struggled for years to do for myself.
I just want to add to.
Go for it, Kurt.
You're taking me back. I mean, I want to add to this because there is a dissonance, a confusion, because we're preaching one thing, but we've never experienced it. Well, that was me. And one thing that really disturbed me, I disturbed myself when I was preaching something to them. I was teaching my kids about something that they weren't really seeing, which I think is just the epitome of evil. If you're presenting Christ and he is never demonstrated. I'll come to that in a minute. But the reason why I say this is because I think that because so many of us lack, because remember, bro, we had never seen healthy marriages. I had never seen healthy marriages. I had to develop my own. I'm still on the road. And so when you don't have what is true, and when you rely on practices in order to represent a level of righteousness or inspiration, you then have to kind of coat it with something else. There's like a counterfeit version of what a Christian is and love is. And when you're married, your family, your 4 and 5-year-olds can see that you're lying. Even when you're off the stage, when you're talking to your friends, they can see your 4, 5, 6-year-olds. My eldest 17. When she was young, I remember, she's very intuitive. She could see right through me. That scared me because I knew. And so I'm thinking, what do I do? How do you deal with that with a child who can see that you're lying about his love? And I've loved my children to the best of my ability. But what I was preaching was another level. They couldn't, they never were really experiencing this. And so I had to coat it. So what I have to do is I have to make my tie more straight. I have to sing louder. Make sure my hair's done. And that counterfeitness is really just a coat. It's like a gold plating over the dung. And I'm just encouraging people that they mustn't allow religious practices. And I just want to be clear, religion, like I'm saying from before, religion is good. It's just that it shouldn't be the dominant feature of your faith. And it's sometimes very hard to tell the difference. But we shouldn't allow religion to be the means of which we love our families, love our wives, love our children. But relationship.
I guess obviously as well, to even add from that, so obviously from a child who's watching parents in a marriage, I think this is even a point that even Anthony even mentioned earlier on, but there is a confusion even from a child perspective, that will grow with you when you get older. For instance, you can see your parents on a day-to-day basis and you see their marriage on a day-to-day basis. They go through real challenges, they go through real arguments, real stuff happens. And you will have your own ideas in terms of what you feel about their marriage. Then you'll get to church, all right, and you will hear pastor or someone come up to the thing to give a testimony about how great their marriage is, and you were looking at your parents like, what is going on over here then? So wait, are you guys not doing it right? And I think the lack of transparency, because we don't talk about the ins and the outs, we only talk about when it's great. We only speak about when it's amazing. We only give the testimony when it's banging. Everyone most of the time gets an idea, like Anthony was saying, that you think that I'm in the worst situation that I'm in, right? And so in fact, when you then grow up, for instance, now growing up, I'm thinking to myself, I've got to undo everything that I saw. But it's actually, whoa, like, listen. And then what you're saying is correct. Then you go into performance based, because now what you're saying is, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to make sure I do this, and actually what happens, it becomes a focal point of you. And then that you now is now fighting against somebody else who's also in a marriage with you, who's also doing the same thing you're doing. Because you're not, like you said, the word that we're talking about here is grace, which is that we don't afford the person grace because we're operating on a performative base. So since you're on performance, the moment you don't perform, what do I got to do? I've got to bring an appraisal here. And I've got to tell you, listen, you're out of bounds. And that causes more tension in your relationship. So there is a, what I'm trying to say is that as you're growing up as a child and you're seeing this thing, because there's a lack of transparency, you can only go on what you've seen. You know what I mean? So how would I be able to have a healthy mindset if all I've seen is my parents' marriage? Because they're human beings at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
let me just jump in there real quick. And you're
it.
totally correct, my bro. But I want to go one step deeper.
Please.
I wish it was a confusion,
Mm.
but for many of us, we see it as normal. And this is why it's so damaging. So the confusion is now normal. It's normal to be confused because we're too young to be able to identify this foolishness that at home things are hell, at church things seem okay. You say God is loving, but you're beating me to death. That then becomes normal. And so as I go through church, I cannot help but see it as normal. So when the pastor's saying something, even though it's contradictory to what he is doing, or my dad or my mom or my friends are doing stuff contradictory, if I see it long enough, it becomes my normal. It's not right. It's not biblical. It's not healthy. It's going to jam up in the future, but that becomes my normal. Hence, what you're doing with these podcasts, with these discussions, is a way to break the chain, to break the cycle, to get people to think differently. But honestly, though, my dude, it's we need more leaders, more people of influence to be transparent about the reality of their own life. I love how when you asked me the question, you made it personal to me. You didn't ask me to generalize it. You went straight to the heart. That's what's needed. When people understand that Fuller struggles, I know it allows somebody to breathe. Woo! Well, if Fuller's struggling, boy,
Let me loosen my
I'm
belt.
all right. You know what I mean? If Fuller's struggling and he's a pastor, then boy, I'm good. I'm all right then. And that's what's been lacking because, you know, without talking about ages, but a certain generation, it was a case of what's done in this house stays in this house. We don't show our stuff. We keep that stuff tight.
I agree.
We're now in a new generation where we are we're rebellious to every sort of system, every sort of religion, every sort of structure. But the reason why we're doing that is because we never really have been introduced to the God of the Bible or the God of religion. And the center of that ultimately is, Curtis, you are a sinner and I need you to own that. It's okay. I've come for you. In other words, if you act like you're not, you're blocking my help. You're blocking my grace. If you're acting like you're good when you know you're not, I can't work with you like that because you're hardening your heart. You're acting like you've got this when you do not. And that message, again, has been taught. It has been taught. Our pastors of times gone, our elders, our parents have taught us the message of grace. They've taught us the message of love. And I can't knock them for doing that. I've learned their memory verses. I know scripture in them. God loveth a cheerful giver. I know the stuff. However, what I didn't see was the experience. I didn't feel the love. Yeah. I didn't feel loved. When I messed up, I didn't feel loved. Nobody hugged me for my crap. Nobody made me feel like, you know what? Come, give me a hug. It's okay. I've got you. Nothing changes. You're still my son. You're still a child of this church. We still believe in you. We still value you. You're still important to the family. I've never experienced it. Let me go one step further. I've never seen it done to someone else. I've never seen it done to someone else. And so if I've not seen it done to someone else, I've not experienced it, then what I have experienced then becomes my normal. That's normal. So it's normal, watch this, for me to be a crap husband at home and to be a great pastor in church. That's normal. It's normal for me to beat up on my wife or to sex up many girls and come to church and act righteous. That's normal. It's normal for me. This is the difference. The only difference is this: don't get caught. If that's the game, just don't get caught.
It's
Whoever
true.
gets caught, but if you don't get caught, you're playing the game. And that's how I've been living, playing the game of not being caught. Knowing that eventually we're all going to get caught. It all catches up with us on some level. And unfortunately, it blows up in our marriages, because marriage is a whole new level of fish. It's a whole new level. It's a whole new game. Marriage is a whole new level of life. And yeah. And so we are confused, my bro, but ultimately that confusion then becomes our normal. And I think that's why religion on some part, when it's put before the gospel of Jesus Christ, it is toxic. It is toxic. It's toxic. It kills.
I love
Not
that.
literally, by the way, but mentally and relationally, and it kills. It destroys.
Did you want to add, Curtis? I saw you was ready. Go for it, bro. No?
Understanding grace was the answer for me. That revelation came at various points and just informed me God was working with me along the way. I think that initially, and up to that point, I was involved with various groups who really have a narrow way of thinking, religious groups and people who had a way of operating that was really allowing me to believe that standards being kept are a form of righteousness, which is true in part. But that was it, which was what the problem was, right? And the fact that I didn't understand grace meant that I saw God as someone waiting to lash me, right? And I recognized I was really looking at myself. And what do I mean by that? I mean, the graceless religion is definitely a representation of a graceless marriage. I don't think you can be loving to your wife on a fundamental level and be graceless. But yeah, look, listen, everybody understands what grace is, but not everybody has comprehended it. Do you know what I mean?
This is the difference.
There's a difference. There's a difference. Yeah. So we've all read Love, Mills and Boone for Love, if you know what that is. Yeah. Novels for love. We've all seen EastEnders and whatnot, right? But not everybody's experienced it, and not everybody can tell you what it is. It's something that is necessary fundamentally for a Christian. For me, being a man who had position, who has a title, who's recognized, did not understand grace. I couldn't impart it. And really, because when I was teaching this, I was teaching people about faith and Bible and prophecy and stuff like that. But I couldn't have taught about this topic. And when I look at that, that was a direct representation of how I was in my marriage. So for really, if now that we're actually talking about this to you all, you should be able to see a faker from a mile off, or see someone who hasn't got it from a mile off. But grace has informed my way forward. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm teaching my children to see, like the goggles. You need to be, that movie. What is it? They Live. Where the guy, Roddy Piper, he puts the glasses on, you can see the aliens' faces. But when he takes them off, everybody looks like a human. So there were some aliens in society. And I'm teaching my children how to see the world through God's goggles, so that they can't be duped like I was easily. Now, that brings us onto the topic now, then, maybe, of how did I love my wife with that mindset? And we had to have conflict. And some of the conflict at first didn't know where it came from. In fact, some of the conflict at first didn't even make sense. Some of the anger and frustration. It didn't make, I'm talking to marriages now. I'm talking to relationships and marriages that are hanging on by a thread, or for those of you who think that you will never go through this. Okay. We were arguing about things we didn't ever understand. Sometimes I would walk away in anger and be clueless because she was unhappy. Because I'm not saying I'm the fault of the whole marriage, but I'm dealing with me now, right? So this is what grace does, isn't it? Like you said, bro, you have to own it, right? It meant that because I hadn't loved her. Did I love my wife? Yes. But I didn't love her because I was graceless. I didn't understand how to meet her. Because grace makes you stop and think, you know what I'm saying? If you're under grace, you stop and think. You stop before, you don't speak until you think. And so when I'm trying to love my wife and she's frustrated with me, and I remember, this is a few years back now, right? She doesn't know what the problem is until we go hammer and tongs. Let the steam out, create some damage to each other. And after a few years, I didn't say weeks, a few years, starting to get to grips with actually, I'm about to lose my marriage if I don't turn. And we listen, years. Stick at it, people. Stick at it. It took years for us to understand that the root was this performance before men. The performance before men. In the name of God.
I love that point. And I think just as you're talking, obviously, even for those who are not in a marriage as well, I think if you're in a relationship, the rules are the same in a sense, aside obviously the sexual part, but the rules are the same in a sense of the fact that this word, the grace that we're talking about, also requires for introspection. So this actually ties into psychology, because with grace, what it means is that, okay, if I'm being loved and it's not based on my performance, I then have to look at the other person the exact same way, right? And then what it does, because you have to look at the person the exact same way, love them, not the performance, but you got to look beyond that. What it allows for people to do actually is to actually find out, what am I triggered by? So I was having a conversation with a friend about this the other day, and I was saying about, as we've grown up, we've got older, we started to realize. In fact, I even had a conversation with Mrs. just not long ago, and I was realizing some of the things that are happening is not now. So, like the word to attract, the word attract. So the reason why you found your wife attractive, the word attract actually comes from, they derive it from to evoke. When you evoke, what that means is to recall. You are actually finding someone attractive due to something that is already in you already. For instance, when you see in the Bible, Abraham and his wife Sarah, then his child that he has, let's say Isaac that he has, finds a wife that is also similar. It says Rebecca was a fine babe. She had a figure, the same way Sarah had a figure. And you see that Jacob too, he didn't love Leah with the weak eyes. He loved Rachel with the figure. They are repeating the same thing because what they're doing is recalling. They are evoking. So you're actually bringing up memories from the past. Someone is making you think about someone who you care about. The arguments that we normally have in these relationships and the struggles that we face in the relationship are often coming from a place of the past, because what you're doing right now is evoking something in me from the past. And the trouble is, as Anthony and your
You still there though, Anthony?
Yeah, I'm still there.
Bro, take it away, man. Oh, is he still there?
Place about that. I think it froze for a second. You go into a place. Sorry about that. I went froze for a little bit. Yeah, the trouble about that is that when you have been taught, as you've been guys have been saying, to build up the walls, is that you're going to evoke the walls, because you've been taught that you're only going to recall what you've been trained. And the Bible tells us what this: train a child up in the way to go, and he will not depart from it. So what happens? You've been trained to build up a wall. You will build up a wall in your relationship. So if you've been taught legalistic Christianity, you will bring legalistic Christianity, because you can only do what you've been trained. So these conversations that we're having, where you're talking, I'm hearing you, I'm actually sharpening myself, and I'm actually chipping away at some of the things that actually are not good for me. and some of the things that are hindering a process of being able to operate in grace. So when we talk about grace in a relationship sense, you are consistently having to chip away at the parts of your heart that are stone that need to be turned to flesh, the parts that are cold, that the Bible says that uh that the darkness could not comprehend the light. Well, in a lot of us, there are areas of our heart which are still dark. They're in need of light, and the light here is illumination, knowledge. It needs knowledge to be able to shed some light in the area to say, hey, you are operating legalistic in this area of your marriage, and you need to look at it. And that's where the Holy Ghost comes in. But anyway, I've said enough, but let me throw it back to you guys. Let me
No,
throw
that
it
was
back.
a strong word, brother. That's a strong word.
Let me throw it back to you guys so you can give us this wisdom. In regards to, obviously, we've been speaking about the religiousness and talking about breaking out of those boundaries. I think someone even made a comment about this, and I wanted to kind of touch on it. And Anthony, you've mentioned it. Curtis, you've mentioned it. The church itself has a huge role, I believe, in helping aid healthy marriages. How does the church go about creating what I would call Switzerland, safe space, so that you can come and have that space to talk? Because you need that in your marriage, first of all. You need that safe space to be able to be emotional, etc., as men in your marriages. But we actually also need that in our church, because we spend a considerable amount of time with people that we care about in those churches. How do we create that safe space so that you and I don't perform and we actually can be true?
I'm going to be a little bit controversial here.
Go for it.
I think we need to break down the word church for a minute, and be very clear that where two or three are gathered, that's sufficient. And
That's
so we're
guy.
having church. We're having church right now.
That's my guy.
I don't want us to limit it to a day or a building. But when we do limit it to that building, because that's generally how we turn church. When we say the word church, we think of the day and the building and the fellowship and the brethren coming together. Honestly, my bro, from a religious standpoint, and I do identify it now more as a system, an institution, I don't believe it's really as possible as we would like it, as it needs to be. It's deep rooted. We need to get to a place where, and maybe COVID has created this opportunity for us, but we need to get to a place where we're going back to the Church of Acts. We're creating small groups. We're creating where the husbands come together and meet up on a regular basis, where the wives come together, where the spouses come together, and we keep it 100. From a church standpoint, for many people, if you're asking me to go back to my church, so to speak, where I grew up, you're asking me to go back to the place that abused me, that gave me trauma, that emotionally took me out, that may be a little bit too much. For me, church for me is where I come and sit down and hope to be blessed and keep myself to myself. That's as far as church goes. I may actually be more engaged, I may get involved, but I will not show you my heart. I will not show you me in church. However, from a biblical standpoint of church, it's a place where I can where I can confess my sins. Come on now. Look, I am struggling with A, B, and C, and I need you as my brothers to pray for me. The prayer of a righteous man. I need that level of communication, and that may not happen in the organizational, systematic system of church, but it can happen in a church like this. It can happen if me and Curtis meet up and we meet up in our car in Thornton Heath and we talk. That is still church. I feel that in this day and age, we need to pray for people who we trust, who we look up to, that we can share our crap, our real issues, and be 100. Not just for sharing sake, not for EastEnders or Jerry Springer kind of thing, but for us to share in a way where we can be counseled, where we can be prayed for, and where we can be held accountable. And the churches that I go to, accountability, well, you can't hold me accountable if I only see you once a week. That can't happen. I can't get to know you deep enough if I'm only meeting you once a week. we have to upgrade how we do church.
Yep.
We have to upgrade how we do church. It's not how can the church. No. I am the church. And so what can I do to help you? What can I do to help Curtis? What can we do as brothers? What can we do as believers to help each other? And I feel that what Curtis is doing, Juanita, what you're doing, my bro, is a step in the right direction, because you're creating a platform where the spirit can move. Hence, I am arguing, well, you've already started the movement, bro. You've already started. You've already answered your question. If it's now going to get to a place where you have to go speak to the pastor, then the pastor's got to go to the board, then the board's now got to put the regulations in, and then they have to call you in, and you've got to present your case, and then sister so-and-so may say, no, we're already doing it. You have to go to the family ministries director, and then you go to that person, and then they don't like what you're doing. That's institutionalized. That's the system, and that has its place. But what you're talking about is this. Whether it be online or whether it be in the car or we're in a mask, we're keeping up to the COVID measures, safety measures, and we're meeting, whatever that may be, that is church. And has always been church, by the way. We're the one that has changed church to become an event. Church was never meant to be an event. So yeah.
Flo, Curtis.
Listen, man, what can I add to that? I mean, you answered for me. We're looking at the actual classic church gathering, corporate worship. What can that environment do? And I think that environment isn't really designed to do this. I'm not going to try and load a tree into my SUV. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not. There's a vehicle designed for that. But what you are talking about, what you're asking about, is actually being done. And COVID has been, for me, a forest fire, which has really created a lot of destruction. But then in nature, they're essential for creating new platforms for life and growth. So sad as it is, and my heart goes out to a lot of people who are going through this right now. It has created the opportunity for new growth. And you have created that platform early for us. And I'm more comfortable talking to the rest of the world than going back to my church and talking to 150 people. That's what we're talking about. To be honest with you, one of the reasons why, and the question is still there, how do you break out of the religious routine? One of the things is that now I don't care what people think of me. After what I've been through anyway, some of you know, some of you don't know. But because I don't care, I am free. And because I don't care, my marriage is doing a lot better. In fact, it's like this. If I could, it's still climbing, but it's climbing. Just because I don't care what people think. But I'm never going to expect you in your Mini to be carrying 50 bags. It's not for that. This is for that. This is not corporate worship. This is a platform to be transparent, to help people grow. There's an important thing where we need that corporate worship because it's important for a lot of people's mental health. I don't need it personally, but some people need it, and we need that. It's a beautiful thing when we're all singing and doing our thing, man. But just get it right. This is the time, in the 80s and 90s when we were growing up, 70s, 80s, 90s, right? When we were growing up. There was nothing like this. So we've gone through, my generation, Anthony's generation, we're going through we're just glad to be here doing this. This is freedom. I got wings. We already doing it. The answer.
And as well, as Curtis said, the institution, the corporate, as much as it has its place, that place belongs within a lifestyle. And so if I'm gonna meet, if we're all gonna meet on a particular day to worship, it's in addition to other stuff where we can keep it 100. Another thing what COVID has done is COVID, especially the first lockdown, it forced me to be at home.
Say that again. It just cut out. Say that again.
When with the first lockdown, it forced us to be at home. And I remember I was on the ropes. I was like, what? I kind of look forward to that little getaway. I need every now and again to know I'm gonna have a little space. You know? And so it forced us all to have to face whatever it is we had been running from. And some of us have dealt with it well, and some of us have dealt with it badly, not because we're bad people. We've never had the tools to deal with it. We've never known what to do with it. We're used to avoiding or running, that now we're forced into this situation. And that's why, even though COVID has impacted us in a negative, people have died and it's been tragic, the opportunities and the way that it's opened our eyes to who we really are has been magnificent. And again, bringing church to me in that space has given many people hope that, I'm not the only one stuck in the house of my husband, or stuck in the house of my wife, or stuck in the house of my children. Because the reality is that these church platforms that are continuing, is a continuation of our day of worship, is giving us life. And I showed Curtis this a few weeks ago, the BBC report that during the first lockdown, the amount of people that researched divorce and separation increased in that time, meaning that a boom for divorce and separation is coming, because people have realized that for all these years I've been avoiding this situation. Now I'm in it. I don't want to be in it. I don't want to be in it anymore. And as I speak to couples, what I realize is that it's not that they don't love each other. They don't know how to love each other. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know that they set high expectation. They don't know that they're being unrealistic. They don't know that they've got PTSD. They don't know that they're depressed. They don't know that they've got high anxiety. They don't know these things because we've been constantly busy, running away from ourselves, our marriages, our lives. And so why, for me, again, church is more than the event or the day. It's because I need my brothers on Sunday. I need you on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because that's when real life happens. Real life don't happen for me in church when I go to church. In fact, I'm more not myself in church than when I'm not at church. I need my church in my house. I need my church when I'm in my car. I need it wherever I'm going. And that's why these platforms, and my prayer is that these things will grow from strength to strength. It's needed 24/7. And I say 24/7. The idea is that as a result of these platforms, I am then learning to build a relationship with God for myself in my own time, in my quiet time, in my journeys. I am growing as I grow with you, as I grow with my bigger church family. But as I said, and I agree with him, to try and change the church system, the day of worship, to become a safe place, I don't think that's what that's designed for. I think it's corporate worship. So when I pray for everybody. I pray generally. When I preach generally. I preach for the saints. But then you need to create spaces where we can go in and talk about the nuts and bolts of life, of marriage, of emotion, of my mentality, etc. Does it make sense?
Yep, 100%. 100%.
There's a question I could see. It says, "What does healthy accountability look like?" That's a question out there to you guys. I know you're the host, Kojo, but here we go.
I see
it now.
What does healthy
accountability look like? It's a good question. If I answer it, I'm just going to be winging this one, so I'll leave it to Mike, the host.
For me, healthy accountability. For me, healthy accountability is a two-way thing. And I think what's happened is we've got a one-way thing a lot of times. right? Which is that when I'm accountable to you, okay, I'm willingly making myself transparent for you. Okay, I'm opening myself up to you, right? But I can't open myself up to you if you never want to open yourself up to me. That's actually irresponsible, because what you're asking me to do is be emotionally available whilst you won't allow yourself to be emotionally available for me. And actually that becomes, it can easily become an abusive relationship, right? If that was a relationship and someone was emotionally available and another person wasn't, that person would have all the power to do whatever they wanted, because you are being transparent, you're opening yourself up, you're leaving the vulnerabilities, you're giving them the weaknesses, and they're just looking at you like but they're never sharing that part of their life with you. So being accountable, I believe, is a two-way thing. It means, when I say two ways, it means in the sense of the fact that I hear you. Let's say even say pastor to congregant, right? Like if we're talking about I'm gonna share my marriage with you, it can't be one way, because then we forget that we're still brethren. You know, even though you're my pastor, you're still my brethren. Now, there may be things that you won't share with me. I understand that, because that's for closer friendships. There are some things which are not going to be shared because they're not the right type of relation that you have. But when it comes to accountability, if we're doing life together, like for instance, Curtis is older than me, right? I respect him 100%. So if he shares something with me, I will share something. I also share my life with him. You understand? Yeah, because I see that obviously he's taken the lead to share something with me. That, in fact, that was probably one of our first conversations. Curtis shared something with me. I said, "Oh, raw, okay, I'll give him everything then." I didn't even. I'll give him everything. Whatever you want to know, bro, I will answer it honestly, because the guy took leadership in creating a safe space for me to say, okay, I can now bring my stuff to you because you're not going to judge me, and you're not going to now condemn me or make me ashamed. And so the accountability happens naturally. People will naturally be drawn to you because they, for instance, when I do celibacy videos on YouTube, the amount of people that were messaging me telling me this, they're now sharing their whole entire life with me. I'm like, bro, whoa, relax. It's one video, bro. But because they don't often have that from somebody who can just share openly how they feel, they won't do it. So what we've got sometimes in the system is that we've got a forced hand. Come and be accountable. All right, cool. I'll come and be accountable, but it doesn't go the other way. And so actually we're not actually forging a proper relationship. What we are forging is dynamics of hierarchy. It doesn't allow for the fullness of accountability to take place. We're not in an organization. We're not in a business. So you being my boss and me being an employee is different from you being my pastor or even a congregant, a brother and sister in Christ, and being an employee. Do you know what I'm saying? It's completely different. We're brethren doing life together. You are playing a role. I'm playing a role. You understand? And if we see it like that, then I will naturally be accountable to you, because actually I see that the brother came to me and was honest and open. Oh, me too. I'll be honest and open. So that's how I see accountability. But again, that's my definition. You understand? I'm not also a pastor, so I don't know how it looks for a pastor. If I can throw that ball in your area, in your court, how does that look? How does that look for you, sir, when you're talking about accountability?
You just batted back to me, boy. what I will say is that I'm hoping, Curtis, that since you've asked the question, you've got an answer for that. I'm gonna say that.
Go on, Curtis.
But I will add this, that I will add clear boundaries is important. I've been guilty of this, where you're too available. You're too available, where that person becomes burdensome. Like, dude, okay, we need to end this relationship. This is too much. I'm not that guy. It's knowing what you can give, what your time space is, knowing that I also have a family, responsibilities, and it's making that very clear. I think from the word you used was healthy. It's healthy that, so for example, if I'm emotionally, mentally weak, I'm not in a position to be accountable, because I have got nothing to give. And so I can't be that 24/7 guy. And so boundaries need to be clear and needs to be reviewed regularly. Amen. But it's done in a brotherly way. It's not like to say like, okay, let's evaluate this, but it's that chit chat that we have. But I haven't really looked into it, so I don't want to really talk like I do know what it is about, my bro. but I will definitely say that boundaries, just listening to you, should be a key part of that process.
100%. Go for it.
I have a question. I guess we'll all have to answer this, right? The question begins with, the question is a statement. I will never again. That goes to all of us.
Okay. I can't say I will never again. I can't say that. I can't say that because I'm going to do it again. but for the purpose of this exercise,
yeah.
I will never again be a people pleaser. I will never again find my identity outside of Christ. I will never again, I will never again feel the need to be loved by others to feel worth it, to feel worthy, to feel valued. And again, I want to make this clear that even though I'm saying I never again, listen, I am struggling with these 100%. These are my vices. What I'm sharing with you are my Achilles heel, my weaknesses. But you can continue. I'll throw some more in. I will never again put my family last. And
First
second
ministry.
is lost. And second is lost, by the way. But again, because my wife could be hearing this, she'd be like, Anthony, why you like this?
Well, she's in the background going, she's watching you right now.
Is that right?
Dave, you said never again.
It's on tape.
but again, as I grow back 100%, as you said, my bro, first ministry, 100%. And that's a hard lesson because I've not been taught this and I've not been shown this. I've not seen this. And so I've had to learn that through years of mistakes and talking and preaching and messing up and crying and going through heartache in the home to realize that when the Bible says husbands love your wives, he means that. He means that. That's serious. That's serious. More than you love others, your reputation or how people view you, love your wife, love your family. That's first. I think that was unfair though, say that I would never though. I feel every time I said it, I was lying. I just wanted to let you know that.
It's a hope. It's a hope.
It's a hope. I hope. Yeah, you should have said I hope.
Yeah, it's real because it's like for me, I mean, I'm saying it. And if I fall, I fall, but I'm gonna say it. But I know what you're saying.
I'm feeling that as well, bro. I'm feeling that.
Let me mess up on something that I was trying to do right. You know what I'm saying? But luckily, my wife has 6 inches of grace that she'll give me each time,
Amen.
so I'll make it back. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to repeat what you said. I will never put any system or people before my family ever again.
Amen.
And you know, I'm funny. Something crept up my spine just now to say, "Are you sure about that?" So I'm expecting failure, but since I came out, I've been free, and I hope that I continue. I will never again teach something that my children cannot see.
Say that again.
I will never again teach something that my children cannot see.
Okay. Teach.
So my religion is about evidence. I swear that has been one of the biggest influential thoughts that has governed my Christianity for the last 3 years.
It's a game
is that they must never hear about grace and have never experienced it. They must never hear about faith and love and discipline. They must and the thing is, the things I'm teaching to them, they have to see me at least doing it. They have to see it. Christianity is evidence-based, from evolution to prophecy to the home. So I will never again preach something that they cannot experience. or it doesn't exist. And I will never. No, I'm not going to put anything more on it because I don't have the capacity to uphold it. I'm never gonna make it. But that's me, bro. What are you saying, Coach?
Me, you know what? Never ever again, put anyone before my relationship with God, because without that relationship, I can't be better for you. Because if I summarize everything we've spoken about today, the lessons we're learning are lessons that a lot of times we are learning through our marriage with Christ himself. So as we are going through our junk and our funk with the Lord, as we're learning things from him, the way that he treats us. Like, I've never gone to have a conversation with God and I've got shouted at. I've never had a conversation I've gone with him and he's lambasted me when I got there. You know what I mean? I've never had a conversation gone, listen, that, get out of it. I've never had that from him. You know what I mean? So I will never, ever put anything before that, because if I did, I couldn't be my best me who I need to be for you if you're my partner. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I think that is it. Because I remember when I was young, probably hadn't given my life to Christ, but I said to a girl at the time, listen, she basically asked me to choose between her and God. And I said, listen, God can do one. It's me and you. So from that, I always remember that point. I will never put anyone or anything before my relationship with God, because that will mean that I can't be my best me in life for either my partner or for anybody who needs me in this life if God has asked me to be in their life. So that for me is number one. I don't know if I've never ever.
Maybe it's just one.
Like that. It's heavy. Because there's a lot of things I'm sure God will totally touch on me, but yeah, that's what I would say. That's what I'd say. We've come to the end of the time, so let me conclude it. Let me conclude it so let me let you have 30 seconds, maximum 30 seconds conclusion. What do you want to give to the audience as a takeaway? So 30 seconds. If I let Anthony go first, 30 seconds takeaway to the audience, and then we'll let Curtis end up.
You can't give what you don't have. Taste and see that God is real for yourself. His word is true. Love him. He will give you the power, the capacity to love others. But I implore you to experience and taste how sweet he is, and that you are loved just as you are, and he has a plan and a purpose for your life.
Amen.
Don't use religion to avoid loving. Don't use a religion to avoid affection. Don't use a religion to avoid spending time with your family.
Agreed. 100%. Guys, you've heard from two amazing men of God who have joined me honorably on this platform to discuss some real food for thought, which is around the religion and the effects of it on our marriages. I hope you guys have got some takeaways from this particular conversation. And I hope that you take away the conversation and actually really sit with it yourself and try to see what areas of your life that you can also encompass this word that we've spoken about. I always say it's not every day you need to preach the whole Bible canon to someone just to open their eyes to something. Sometimes God will just use something just small just to speak to it in your part of life. So I pray that you guys have taken something from this. Share it with somebody, rewatch it, like it, share, subscribe, all of that lovely stuff. But don't leave this conversation and still be the same. You know, they always say you can't enter the presence of God and stay the same. So if you've had something from this, don't leave it the same. You know what I mean? But again, Curtis, thank you so much from This Is Marriage UK. Also, Anthony Fuller, thank you so much for joining us as well.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you.
No worries, Cat, man. It's been a blessing. It's been a blessing. Oh, you want to shine your noir again? Go on, Curtis. Shine your noir. Go on.
Before I do that, I just want to thank Anthony for coming on, man, and bearing his all, in a sense. And thank you for the platform. But listen, I just want to say to you, listen, what does noir mean? So I'm doing this for a friend, and it's a good friend who's going to feature on the show. Right, listen, what does noir mean?
His neck in his like.
You understand? I'm giving it my all. What does noir mean? If you could tell me what noir means, go to Noir Collections.co.uk and answer the question. Say again?
Okay. It's not on Instagram, you meant on the website.
On the website, noircollections.co.uk. You can go to Instagram and locate them still on Noir Collections, and find out if you can win one of 2 hats that are being given away. Thank you all.
You know I love a hat. Guys, appreciate you. Stay locked, stay loaded. We will see you again tomorrow for live. Appreciate you guys. Lovely.